Well, this is not running right, and my wife thought it was gas, and it's not gas. It's head gasket. I'm going to show you how I know. You see, that's too bright. You see the shiny, you see that round thing? I'm going to point to it with a stick. Here goes the stick. Right there. Right there. You see how that area has all the grease and oil blown off of it? Well, that's the head gasket leaking. So I've got a new carb on it. Actually, a rebuilt carb. I have messed with this and messed with this and messed with this. I got 4 brand new tires on it. Anyway, I'll get to it. I'm gonna get online right now and see how much a head gasket would cost, and it's not that big a deal. Half a day, you know, if you're an expert lawnmower mechanic, probably an hour or so, but I'm not. I'm just a guy too poor to buy new stuff, so I have to fix it. So that's what I'm gonna do now. Look on there for a head gasket. I gotta see if I can find any ID on this motor. All the tags, there's no tags, everything's been blown off. I know it's a 16 horse Kohler. And I'm gonna roll around to the other side, see if it's got anything over there. No. Somewhere it'll have some information stamped on it. Maybe up here. Oh yeah, I got a new fuel pump on it. I've just put new and new and new and new. Eventually, it's gonna be a new engine. All right. No information so far. I'll figure it out. All right, it is a Koehler CV460, made from 94 to 2004, and I believe it's a 94. And that is the head gasket that I need. So now I gotta go find the cheapest place to get it and the quickest place to get it, which would probably be Amazon. There's nobody local that would have that I know of. All right, I got the part ordered. Don't go too fast. And I'm not gonna take this apart until I get the part, because if I take this apart and then wait a few days, I may not remember exactly where all the parts come off, so. All right, so be looking for that head gasket replacement video. The thing is, I've got so much time. You know, I only give $100 for this thing. And the first thing I did was drain and refill the hydrostatic transmission. And then I welded that on there. And then all the tires were dry rotted. So all 4 tires are new. And then, let's see. I forget, I remember what happened. When our carport roofs caved in, it smashed everything and broke this, and so I've sort of got it Yankee engineered back together. And new fuel pump, rebuilt the carb, new battery, and I had to do a little bit of rewiring, and I removed some of the emergency switches because I had to bypass them because they weren't working. So I got, you know, lots of time, not so much money, but lots of time tinkering and getting this thing running that I just don't want to give up. So if all it takes is a head gasket to get a few more years out of this thing, that's all we need it for. Just to drag a buggy around the yard. And the deck was too far gone to save, so I didn't buy it for the deck. I bought it just to drag the yard buggy around the yard. All right, that's it for down here. I'm going back to the house. All right, it's been probably 10 days since the last clip. of me explaining how I realized that the head gasket was blown was by looking at the shiny area right there on that center round piece right there. And when the engine cranks over, you can see little puffs of exhaust coming out there and raw fuel. So I finally got the gasket. First of all, it took me forever to find out what Kohler engine this is. Hold on, my wife's calling. Okay, we're doing the phone tag thing. My wife called and somebody from the Comcast cable called her. I'll make it brief because this is about this engine, but we've had trouble with our cable, right? It's Comcast, and I have made probably 20 to 30 phone calls and making it very clear that it's not the inside equipment and it's not from the outside cable box to my house, because that line is underground. Where it is a tree next to the phone pole that the cable attaches to, which is blowing and bending and breaking the cable. So I made it very clear. I also made it clear to take that phone number off the other phone number that they had and put my phone number, because my wife doesn't answer her phone 9 times out of 10 unless it's absolutely a number she recognizes, and I don't blame her. And then 90% of the time, she doesn't have her phone on her. So it's a waste of time calling that number because it's 99.9% chance it's never going to get answered. So they took her phone number out and put my phone number in, and they've called her phone 10 times. And she has called me to give me the number that they're calling from, and I'm returning the phone call. I mean, it's just ridiculous, ridiculous, ridiculous. So anyway, it's a repairman, right? And he's coming over to do what? Replace our inside equipment. And I said, you have got to, you're not, well, he's an American, so at least he's going to understand what I'm telling him. And I said, it is not the inside equipment. I have told them people like 30 times. It's where the cable connects to the phone pole. There's a giant tree that has grown up all around the cable. And whenever the wind blows, it moves the limbs back and forth and it pulls the cable. And it has worn a hole through the cable. So now whenever it rains, we lose internet and cable. And whenever it blows, we lose internet and cable. And he goes, I know. He goes, I deal with this all day long. He said, I will turn it into my boss, and my boss will let them know it's not an inside problem. And I said, do you know how many times I have told them people it's an outside problem, it's not an inside problem? It blows my mind how a company that is stupid from top to bottom stays in business. Well, you have no options. Comcast is all you have. It's a monopoly, for sure. So if you don't accept their ridiculously poor service, then your options are no cable, no internet, or, I mean, there's satellite, but that comes along with their own problems. So anyway, back to this. The guy called me a second time, and he said he accidentally butt dialed his phone. He didn't intend to call me, so that's what that phone call was about. So now here we are, 10 days later. I'm pretty sure I know what engine this is. I'm not 100% positive. I think it's I don't even remember a CV460. And they were put on this particular lawnmower from 94 to 2004. So, and I do recall when I had to find other parts for this mower a few years ago, I had to do the same thing. There's no information anywhere on this mower about what this engine is. So I think I've got the right head gasket. Anyway, I just got to start pulling crap off. I got to take all the bolts off for the blower shroud here and disconnect wires, and just gonna, I'm not looking forward to it. First, I got to take the muffler shroud. That's what this is. Prevents the heat from rising up and melting the hood. I'll take that off. And then I got to get to the bottom of this where the exhaust manifold bolts to the head. I gotta pull this off. The oil spigot is bolted here. Then I gotta pull a valve cover off. The carburetor, all that's gotta come off. Ton of stuff. So let me just get to removing. Okay, a few short minutes later. Okay, it's been about 30 minutes. I've got shrouds off. Lots of parts where I have no idea where they go. Nuts and bolts. Wires. And so the next thing is, this is the muffler. That's the exhaust pipe. And it comes up and attaches right here. So the next thing is to get these bolts out of here. One on the other side, the one here, right here. And now you can see it through there. Gonna be a little hard to get to, but if I do break them, I think when I pull the head off that I can probably drill them out. See there, you can see the backside of them. So, you know, nothing ever goes like you hope it'll go. Nothing ever goes like that. And I'm pulling the valve cover off because now I've never had this engine apart, so I don't know if there's bolts that hold the head on in here. Otherwise, there's only 4 bolts that hold the head on and nothing in the middle. So I suspect that there's at least 1 or 2 bolts below the valve cover gasket, because the motors that I have had apart have all been like that. So I'm gonna put a rag under here. Actually, no, I'm gonna try to get these exhaust manifold bolts off first. And that, because I need this to be bolted solid to the engine so I can put some torque on this without everything flopping around. So let me see what size that is and determine whether I'm gonna need a wrench or a socket. All right, I was able to reach up under here. Here's the exhaust manifold flange, and it was bolted up here. I just had to, I think I'll be all right without having to break this free and knock this out. I think I'll be all right. This head bolt has a spacer on it, and that one does not. I'm doing this just so I can review this if I forget how it goes back together. That one does not. So far, I only see one with a spacer on it. So let me go ahead and get that out. These are 13 millimeter, by the way. And when I get these head bolts that I can see out, I'm going to knock that valve cover off and see if there's any underneath there. Okay, it's got a spacer and a washer, and it's probably the longest of all of them, so duly noted. And I've already broke them free. All right, I got one more to get loose around here, and I'll take these out and then I'll knock this off and we'll see if there's any more bolts holding the head on. All right, I got the valve cover off. There are 2 more head bolts. It's 1 and 2. So, I think I'm going to go ahead and pull the rockers off. These are the rockers. And pull the push rods out. And of course, I'll put them back just the way they come out. And then I'll be able to access the head bolts a little bit easier. Okay. It's off. So let me show you how, what the symptoms of a blown head gasket look like. You can see right there, right here, where the head gasket has been blowing raw gas basically out. And there's the area that it has cleaned off down there. And now let me show you the head gasket itself. You can see right here where it has blown a big chunk of it out. So, and now, keeping in mind that I'm just a dude with some tools, I am no small engine expert. So I'm going to tell you the symptoms that indicate to me, the layman, the average guy, that it was the symptoms that led to me suspecting a head gasket were: number one, this wouldn't run well unless you had the choke. I mean, you really had to get the choke just right to get this to run well, which would, one of the reasons I went ahead and rebuilt the carburetor was because of that. I thought it was carburetor. And another problem was the fuel pump stopped pumping gas, so I replaced that. And between the carb and the new fuel pump, I thought, well, that ought to solve it. And it didn't. So then my wife was cranking it, and I saw puffs of raw gas coming out and hitting that right there where my finger's pointing. And then the light went off. Of course, I've experienced this before on an old Cub Cadet I had. And it was a Kohler Command twin cylinder, and one of the head gaskets blew, and it had the exact same symptoms. It would not run well, or at all, unless you pulled the choke a little bit. So there we go. All right, let me get my new gasket out. I'm going to probably take a break here and drink a cup of coffee. And then I'll come back, put the new gasket on, get this back together. And who knows, I may have this done by the end of the day. I'm not in a hurry. I am in a hurry to get it out of here because it's in the way of more important stuff like my motorcycle and my wife's motorcycle. So, let me go get a cup of coffee and take a break. We'll be back. All right, I didn't have coffee yet, but I was anxious to get this back on. So I got it back on. I haven't torqued anything down yet. I am going to go ahead and loosen the rockers up and adjust the valve lash since I'm in here. And that's what I was going to do. Wash my hands, make a cup of coffee, and then Google the torque specs for these. I don't typically, I know it's wrong, but I typically crank things down pretty tight using my torque fingers. But I figured I have a brand new torque wrench, why not get it set up? And I'll find what the torque specs are for the head bolts. Okay, still no coffee. I just can't stop myself here. Head bolts, the torque specs are 15 foot-pounds and then 30 foot-pounds. And of course, the way you do it is you oppose the head bolts. So you do it 15 foot-pounds the first time, and then you come back around and you sock them all down to 30 foot-pounds. Now I'm going to find out what the valve lash. Typically, what I do, if I don't know, I just set them both at 5 thousandths. But let's just, by the way you determine which valve is the intake valve, because sometimes, as a matter of fact, most often, the valve lash specs are different for the intake valve and the exhaust valve. So the intake valve is always going to be closest to the carburetor, and the exhaust valve is always going to be closest to where the exhaust comes out. So there you go. All right, let me go find out what the valve lash clearance specs are. We'll be right back. Okay, all CV engines have hydraulic lifters, so there is no valve adjustment. So what I'll have to do is break these free, move them to the side, get the push rods back in here, and then tighten these back up. So that's good to know. Good thing to know. No valve lash adjustment on CV engines, which this is a CV460, because CV engines have hydraulic lifters. All right, now I'm serious. Coffee, and we'll be back. Okay, I got them all torqued down. And now I'm going to stop and put a few tools away that I'm not going to need anymore. Get them out of my way. Now I'm going to start reassembling. And I'm going to put the valve cover back on and catch just a couple of these, because if I recall, the shroud has to come around. One shroud bolts there, another piece here. And I believe, yeah, there's some like washers that hang out over the shroud there and right here. So that's the next thing. I'll get that valve cover back on and just loosely bolt it there, and then start putting the shroud back on and see what I need to adjust. Okay, we're getting there. Well, I have no extra nuts, no extra bolts, no extra pieces. I'm calling this a win, even if it never starts again. All right, let's see. I'm gonna go ahead and put this shroud back on. And carburetor. Yeah. Okay. This shroud here, 4 bolts, and a carb. And then we can, I'm gonna go ahead and change the oil, because the oil was looking pretty bad in there. I don't have an oil filter. I'm gonna pull this off. I've got a couple filters up there. I'm gonna see if either one of them will fit on this. If not, I will get a Wix number or a Napa number or something and see what will fit this. Okay, carburetor's next. No. This metal, that goes right here, and that's next. I forgot to show you the final product. I've been driving it around. Oh God. I did change the oil. I didn't change the filter. I don't have one, so I put new oil in. It's old. Remember the store, Fred's? They may not have been nationwide, but Fred was similar to Dollar General and the dollar store and a Family Dollar and all that, but they went out of business. And they used to sell oil with their own name on it, and I bought, like a case of their oil because it was cheap. And it was straight 30 weight. So I couldn't change a filter. I've ordered one. So I should have it in, 7 days. So I went ahead and drained the old oil out. It was terrible. I should have showed it to you. It was gray. That bad. And I left the oil filter on. And I put the Fred's oil in there. So I'm going to let my wife, this is my wife's, see, this is what she does with it. Pull that trailer around with it. And pick up sticks and move dirt. Right now she's got, see the fire right there, the fire pit? She's moving that dirt and putting it in flower gardens. So, all right, let's crank it up. Okay, I'm going into my knife shop and I'm going to work on a knife. So I never did get that coffee. I don't know why I keep putting coffee off. I guess because it's all the way over here and my shop is all the way over there. My other shop, this is my knife shop. So, okay, I'm going to get me a cup of coffee and then I'm going to my knife shop, and the knife that I thought might have been spoken for. Okay, the blue handle knife, the fella still wants it, even though it's been a couple, 3 months. And the other knife that I was gonna do scroll work on, I'm not gonna do any scroll work on because that fella, I'm out of breath. I've done a lot of walking. The fellow that wanted it many months ago and I never was, you know, I've done other things. So anyway, he let me know that he wasn't going to be able to buy it because he's retired now and on a fixed income, which I completely understand. And I would have, you know, before I got much further along on it, I would have contacted him and asked him if he was still interested in it before I make it personalized, you know, before I make it, you know, let him choose the wood and all that. So I'm going to go ahead, keep on with it, but I'm not going to do scroll work. It is going to be a polished knife, and I have some really nice Chechen burl that I may use because that's some beautiful wood. So I'm going to sand that up today. I was at 320. Where's my coffee cup? Huh. I think I'm starting at 320. Either that or I left off at 320. So, yeah, 320. Okay, so I'm starting at 320. Maybe before the day is out, I can get it up to 600. And this fella, he wants this knife, but he wanted me to put a glass breaker on the back here. And I looked at the cost of glass breakers, which are, you know, $8-10. But my God, they want $12-15 to ship them here. So I have another piece of blue. Where are you? I didn't want to use it. This is a $75 piece of wood right here. And I usually save these for my really big Texas rumble handles. But, and since I screwed this up, I'm going to go ahead and use it on that. Okay, let's get some coffee in us.